This is a special live broadcast on CIOE 97.5 FM.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to CIOE's special coverage of Federal Election 2021, being brought to you live from the CIOE Concert Hall and Art Gallery 97. As part of CIOE's ongoing efforts to keep Nova Scotians aware and informed about important public events that directly impact on their families and well-being, we have assembled a diverse panel of people from different backgrounds and experiences to share their thoughts and observations as the results of today's federal election unfolds this evening. While every election is important, Federal Election 2021 is perhaps the most critical election in years, as whatever party is successful in forming the next government, they face the monumental task of moving Canada forward from the stubborn clutches of COVID-19 and the devastating impact it has had on all Canadians, our economy, health care, affordable housing, the environment, racial inequality, and many other societal challenges that require action. We wish all candidates good luck and thank them for putting their names forward in this election. So, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and enjoy CIOE's special coverage of Federal Election 2021.
CIOE FM radio in the heart of Sackville, Nova Scotia. I want to thank Jim for his introduction and his allowing us the opportunity to be with you tonight to discuss what's going to be a very exciting federal election results, and looking forward to it. Tonight we're going to have 5 panelists. We're going to have 3 at a time, and then after a half hour or so, we're going to switch a couple out, and we'll keep that going for 2 hours. I'm pleased to be joined by, of course, none other than the voice of radio himself, Al Hollingsworth. Welcome, Al. Good to see you.
My pleasure.
And, of course, Michelle Raymond, my friend and former MLA. Thank you, Michelle, for being here. It's great to see you as well.
Nice to see you, too.
And, of course, Craig Smith. Everybody knows Craig from the Black Cultural Center, and we want to welcome you here tonight, too, Craig.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
I know that, of course, we know you, and many of our listeners do as well, but can you tell us a little bit about yourself just before we get started?
As you mentioned, former president and board chair of the Black Cultural Society and Center for Nova Scotia, local author, and serving member of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police with 25 years service, and I am the site commander of the Lower Sackville Detachment.
Nice, very nice, and well-versed in politics. He knows, and not, I should say, the community as opposed to politics. And Michelle Raymond's another person who's very community-oriented. And Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm more of a Spryfield girl, actually, but I've come all the way out to Sackville today, and thanks very much for inviting me. I grew up over closer into Halifax, and as you mentioned, have been involved in politics, served 3 terms in the legislature. I call myself post-partisan at this point, but I'm a big, I'm involved in the Urban Farm Museum of Spryfield and in singing and so on, historical music of Nova Scotia. And I'm a big believer in like we are tonight, following in a pattern of a long set of footsteps lead us at any given time to where we're going next. So
Yes.
I'm just interested to see where we're going next.
And I'm very much looking forward to your insights tonight. It was great to see you, by the way, on the weekend at the Spryfield Days Festival.
It was wonderful, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
It was
Yeah.
good. It was really
It was
good.
really good.
And Al, what can you tell us about yourself
Well-
that we don't already know?
Well, I'm older than dirt, but I just learned something there listening. Michelle mentioned something about singing, and I perked up. What type of singing? I get deal with this.
Right? It's going to be a long conversation. Okay.
You can just hum it.
Maybe during the break,
Okay.
we can get a tune or two, Al.
All right.
So tonight, we're seeing, we just came off a provincial election just not that long ago, a month ago or so. Do you think that election, that Nova Scotians are election wary, or that?
Yes.
that they-
If they weren't before, they are now, at the end of the day, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I will say, as I walked, as I went around the HRM today, I saw lineups at places. The fact it was a beautiful day probably helped to encourage more folks to get out. There were a lot of people that I talked to as well, though, in the workplace that talked about already doing advanced polling. So, even though we think, folks may be a little wary, I also think that there's a willingness on the part of Nova Scotians to say, I want to have a voice in what's happening federally as well.
There was one point that I'd like to make. It drove me crazy. It's still driving me crazy, and they used it as recent as today. It's a conservative talking point, and they keep talking about the cost of the election, $610 billion, as if it's some kind of a waste. I get sick of it. I got to the point where they wore me out. I didn't want to hear it again, ever. And I think that type of thing will backfire on them.
Well, that's an interesting one, because I have to say that the fact that it has become a major talking point, the cost of an election, doesn't speak very well about level of interest in democracy and democratic
Exactly.
participation. However, I think we're all feeling a little bit punch drunk from a whole series of things, and yet I think people are really, really keen, particularly in Nova Scotia. We have just seen a provincial election. And it's unusual, very, very unusual. I don't even know if there's been a time when a federal election was actually called during a provincial one. But the events of the pandemic have crunched so many things together. There are economic and health crises happening all at once. So it maybe had to happen there. And I think people are interested to see how federal and provincial politics fit together in a way that they haven't had a window very often.
Well, what I found was, the provincial election, to me, was very exciting. I could sense something happening. I could sense change. And in fact, near the end, I predicted that the Conservatives would win the election. I don't have that same sense now, and I know it's close. It's back and forth, and the polls are, 1, 2, 3 percentage points, whatever, within a margin of error. It doesn't matter. They're tied. But it's not the same. To me, it's not the same. It was excitement. There was something building in the Nova Scotia election. It's not there in this election.
Yeah, I think there was, Al, at the start, and O'Toole kind of started to come up, and then they've evened out in the poll, and then all of a sudden there was no more bump. Like in the provincial election, you could feel it, that Houston was coming up and up and up, and he didn't stop, and then they, but I don't think that happened this time. I think.
No, we definitely saw the tides change in the provincial election, you're right. As it got close to the end, it was like,
Yeah.
Something's gonna happen here. I don't have that same feeling when it comes to the federal one at all.
No, and we have to be very cautious because the polls are still open until 8:30, so we can't be trying to sway people on how to vote. I want to say this, there's an interesting aside to this election. We, meaning Nova Scotia, have two party presidents. Rob Batherson is president of the Conservative Party of Canada. Suzanne Cowan, daughter of Jim Cowan, former senator, is the Liberal national president. That, I think, is almost unheard of. Maybe going back to the day, I don't know who the Conservative president was at the time, but I'll go back to the days of Al Graham, when he was president of the Liberal Party of Canada. This to me is unusual, and I don't know Suzanne Cowan. Her father, Jim Cowan, former senator, he retired, I believe he's 79 now, so he retired 4 years ago. He ran against Vince McLean for the leadership in 1986. He lost the leadership, and I stood there and I interviewed him, and he gave Vince his pledge at that point that he was going to run for the Liberals. Well, I've never seen him since. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but I will say this much. He became a senator because, it might be because his wife's a cousin of Paul Martin's wife. I'm just guessing.
Well, that might have had some, but I think he was, he worked hard for the Liberal Party.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. I was there,
Okay,
you weren't.
Okay.
No, he didn't.
So, well, one of the things that's really interesting about this one here is that, and I think it's hard to get any tidal motion going, is that at the federal level, the parties, the basic positions aren't as polarized as they were, because we've got splinters on all sides. I mean, you've got sort of what might be described as a progressive wing or a left wing or whatever, which has got at least 3 parties going on, and conservatively, there's at least 2 and sometimes more. So you've got just a lot of places to put a vote.
Well, it is.
Conservative, you have the Conservative Party of Canada, you have the People's Party, and the Bloc Québécois. I would have to put them in the Conservative category. So the votes, especially in Quebec, it could go any way of 3 directions. The Bloc, my projections, I think the Bloc will probably win 1 seat, and that'll be Bernier will hold a seat. Other than that, they won't be involved at all. The NDP is going to hold the balance of power. And they're going to have 36 seats, on my predictions, 36 seats, so in that ballpark. And they'll have the balance of power. Now, Jasmine Singh said today that he will support either the Conservative or the Liberal parties of Canada. Either one of those form a government, he's going to support them. But the proviso is they have to tax the rich. That will be interesting.
Yeah, I wonder what his definition is there. Go ahead, Greg.
No, you hear the tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. And I think within that, we really have to think of as well as who are some of the largest employers across this country. And so in reality, what does that mean, right?
Well, put it this way, I worked for a gentleman who, he had 17% of the shares of the Royal Bank of Canada. You do the math on that. That's a lot of money. And he bragged about not paying income tax.
Yeah, well, he should be, that's for sure. There's no question
Well,
about
it's-
that.
it's-
And so I think that's,
The bottom line is not a level playing field. We've got to make it a level playing field for all Canadians.
I agree with that.
Not the wealthy, not the poor, all Canadians.
Yep.
Level playing field.
Yep. One thing that I'd like to hear your opinions on is the Green Party. Like, I thought.
PEI, they could take at least 1 seat, maybe 2 in PEI.
Yes, but I was thinking, Al, more in terms of nationally, especially after the last.
Dead in the water.
But I wonder why, like what happened? Tell me more detail about it, rather than just.
The leader is just not registered. And she had a tough act to follow. Elizabeth May was dynamite, and people believed in her. And to follow behind her.
I did listen to her speak the other night, and I thought she was quite good. I thought she was excellent.
She did, but
well-versed in all the topics. Craig?
Well, no, no question. She's pretty well versed. She's, has had 2 masters, possibly a PhD. I mean, she's a well-educated woman. There's no question about that. You're right, Elizabeth May is a hard act to follow. But the reality also is you're a black woman leading a national party, and you're Jewish on top of it. So, there are also, whether we want to say it or not, there are also some negatives that are going to be seen by some folks within the electorate when it comes to that as well. So it's an uphill battle, and I think much like Mr. Singh over the last couple of years coming in behind Jack Layton, Canadians really want to, I think, whether justifiably or not, I want to see people prove themselves over a number of different elections before they start to pay attention to them.
Yes, Michelle,
I think that's probably, have we?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's very true. People do, Canadians do want to see people prove themselves over a lot of elections. Annemie Paul has apparently decided to take a defensive posture and see if she can secure the seat, that she would like to represent. And, it may be that given the internal forces that are going on right now, it just isn't realistic. And, I think that may be a very sensible position to take.
yeah, I thought for sure that the momentum that around the environment and climate
Yeah,
change and
I
all
would
that
agree,
was gonna,
yeah.
I thought it was gonna carry her and the party, the Green Party, to much higher heights this time, and I
The
don't.
internal bickering didn't help.
The bickering
No,
was
that-
bad.
Although I
that's-
thought
that
during
did her in.
the English election, the English debate, I thought she did really well.
Yeah.
And talking after that as well.
And I think too, though, that the Green Party is, they have been in the vanguard of things that are now finally being pretty broadly accepted. I'm not sure that we really see too many people who are contesting that something's going on climate-wise.
No, that's right, that, no,
So
well,
it may be that, that strength has been diminished, so.
The
point.
the polls close in 11 minutes, and I have to pose a question. Do anyone here, including Bruce, think that any party can win a majority?
no,
No, I wouldn't, I'd be really surprised.
yeah, I would,
Amazed.
Now, the only person that has remained constant in this is the MP for in New Brunswick, Dominic LeBlanc. And he's still insisting that they will win a majority. I don't know where his numbers are coming from. I mean, that's baffling to me. I mean, he's been through a lot, and he's a loyal soldier, but there comes a point when you have to be honest with yourself. And I think he's not being honest with himself on that particular.
I saw a few, I envisioned a few changes or numbers going up either way, but I don't foresee anything different than what we have right now.
I would really love for somebody to get a majority, so we don't have to go through this again for.
I think that Nova Scotia could be the precursor to what's gonna happen across the country.
I-
If we
I'm-
see a shift, now, mind you, someone told me the other day that Nova Scotia, that the election ends up just the opposite of whatever happens.
Whatever
in
Nova Scotia does.
But, there are exceptions.
No, it is, and again, we have to be careful because it's still open, but I think, I'll talk to that after 8:30. I think you're going to see major change in Nova Scotia
Yeah?
in seat count. I
Oh,
think you're
well,
going to see, I think you're going to see a big difference.
Okay, well, let's talk about that.
Which way?
After the polls
Yeah.
close. Well,
No,
it can only be,
I'm not going to say which way because I don't want to be
Michelle,
seen as
Well,
swaying.
Well,
somebody.
going back, I think it's fairly neutral to talk about the fact of the election. And I think that yes, it has become a talking point that an election is expensive and maybe it's unnecessary. On the other hand, I would say that an election is always cathartic. And it gives people a chance to, if they choose to, vent their spleen, express their opinions,
Oh, boy,
all the
have they
rest
been
of it.
venting their
Oh, and
spleen.
they have been, and it's
Yeah.
been shocking. It has actually been really, really, really disturbing. I know, I told people were, being jeered at outside polls and so on, some of the advanced polls around our area, but it is nevertheless, it is an important part of the process, and it's an emotional process. And again, what we've got right now is, particularly in Nova Scotia, we have a province that has gone through its own set of traumas very, very recently. So we've had the pandemic, we've had locking down, which has been fairly severe, and it's been effective, but it's nevertheless, we've been kind of isolated throughout all this. Had the whole business at Portapique and all the kinds of questions that have arisen. And so we had a provincial election, we've just had that, and how a province can work, particularly, how any sub-jurisdiction can work, but in Canada, especially a province, it can't work in isolation. It can't work without its federal partner or opponent, whatever the case may be. But how it works is going to be very, very strongly affected by what the federal government does. So we've just had this election here in Nova Scotia, and I'm not sure that Nova Scotians are really as upset about this as possible, because it's hard to start doing work and then discover that it's going to be changed on you. So in a way, at least from Nova Scotia's point of view, it maybe just as well to have the ground, have the footing established really early in a new mandate and go forward.
Yeah, that's certainly, one way of looking at it. I'm not, I tend to think that most people think that he should not have called, that it was just too early, but that's,
Yeah,
that's
yep,
some of the circles that I travel
yeah,
in, but,
yep,
and from all party stripes too, that,
yeah,
he did,
yeah, I think it's all parties, yeah.
that it, so there is some truth in the fact that it was politically expedient for him to do it at the time. He thought the polls were up.
No
He-
question.
He thought
Yeah.
that, nothing was gonna change. And of course, we've seen that in the Nova Scotia.
Conversely, so did Ian Rankin. Ian Rankin seized the moment because he didn't have to call the election right away. He did it because he felt that he was in a good position to
No question.
get a
And the
majority.
moment seized him.
And guess what?
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
No,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
The other, another issue, of course, that, again, I just want to go back to it just for a minute because I can't figure out why, even apart from the Green Party, the environment doesn't seem to have taken a hold in the way I thought it would. I know that there was some, the Conservatives even have gone back to the 30%. So, and I thought that would actually absolutely blow up, but it didn't seem to the way I thought it would.
Yeah,
I think,
Right?
I think Michelle was right in some respects of the fact that everybody's kind of grabbed hold of something that has to do with the environment. So whether or not that takes a little bit of wind out of the sails of the Green now, that everybody's prepared to say, there is some credence to this, and we do have to pay some attention to it, may have taken it out of the sails. I think the other piece of this is that, the pandemic itself, so healthcare and the mess of housing right now are also front and center of people's minds. And
Yes.
so
Yeah.
therefore, you had a number of different things that were grabbing attention as opposed to just
Yeah.
that one.
And you're right about the environment, but my problem is I think we're too late on it. I really think we're too late, and how are we going to stop global warming now? How are we going to stop it? We've got a situation which you're involved in, Michelle, on the Northwest Arm, a guy by the name of Metledge. He wants to infill the Northwest Arm. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? He wants to infill it. I know where I'd send him. I'd
it's
send
not
him back
just
home
him.
because the only time he lives in Nova Scotia is in the fall of the year because it's a nice time of the year. He lives Florida, he lives in Lebanon, he lives all over the world, but in Halifax, he plants his feet down for 2 or 3 months in the fall of the year. And he wants to infill the Northwest Arm? I don't think so. I don't think that if he starts dumping in rocks, I'm going down there and throwing them back on the shore.
Well, good for you. Good for Al.
and the trouble, what's really bad, Al, is that this is not unique. This is something
I
that
know.
people do, and
Yeah.
people have this idea that they will increase their land base or their land area just by filling in the ocean and appropriating it. So this is actually happening all around the coast of Nova Scotia.
Well, I'm
And
disappointed
we've
in
seen
them,
it
and I-
other places.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think the Lebanese community
Shocking.
should in mass, rise up against this guy and tell him the facts of life. He's not about to ruin the Northwest Arm.
All right, well, that was a great discussion there. I think we got about 3 minutes left to go before we, I don't want to take up all of the topics. We got, it's quite a time left. Now the
How's
polls.
our 8:30 coming? How
it's-
many minutes
We're
do we
about
have?
2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes,
yeah.
okay.
Exactly, it says up there.
To
All right,
polls
so we
close
stay
in.
neutral for 2.5 minutes. Stay
Exactly.
safe.
So, you said you were neutral.
I am, can we stay safe, I guess, neutral, stay safe.
Oh, my. All right, so let's start talking about East Francois Blanchette and the block. Now, I know Al said and we'll continue this after the break because I think it's a long enough discussion that we can't finish it before the break. But Al had talked. He doesn't. He thinks he's going to get less seats. I think is what you said earlier.
Yeah, he's gonna get 1 seat.
Yeah, like that's. I can't go along with that at all.
If he gets 1 seat, that'll be a bonus to him.
He has-
But he's gonna cut into the conservative vote.
He has
And that
10
will
now.
help the liberals.
He
You're
has
talking
10
about 1 seat more that they have right now, or are you talking 1 seat?
No,
period?
1 seat period.
altogether. He has 10 now. He has 10 now. You don't think that
Who's gonna lose those 9?
the question had any effect on the psyche of the Quebec people during the debate?
No.
You don't think that's going to have any effect?
Not to that point.
Or-
If
or
there's
the-
a bounce there, it'll go to the Quebec walk.
Provincially,
The BQ.
provincially.
Well, no, the BQ,
The block.
the block, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what we're talking about, is
Yeah.
the block.
No, well,
You say it'll go to the Quebecois.
yeah.
Yes, yes. Okay,
No,
so,
I'm talking about the People's Party.
okay,
Oh,
okay,
actually
okay.
Bernier.
PPC,
Yeah,
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 PPC,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, good, okay. I'm glad you clarified that for us.
Well, there's no question that the other parties have been trying, to make their presence known in Quebec and to see what they might be able to do to solidify some seats there. So I'm really interested in seeing how that's going to play itself out.
Yes, me too. I'm really interested in what's gonna happen in Quebec, because there was a bunch of stuff that happened there just close to the end of the premier coming out, Quebec premier coming out, and so kinda saying a few positive things. But we're gonna go to a break, and we're gonna go to the news, and we'll come back to Quebec when we get back. So I wanna welcome Ron James to do our newscast for us.
I'm Ron James with the CIOE News Update. The polls are now closed. Canadians have voted for their first ever pandemic election after a 36-day campaign. This was the shortest possible election Canada could have had. And why does it feel so long? Well, maybe because nobody really wanted it. Today marks the kickoff for the Progressive Conservatives Speak Up for Healthcare tour across Nova Scotia, where Premier Houston and his health ministers will tour the province, gathering feedback from frontline healthcare workers. The new government is focused on making changes to the healthcare system. Sometimes that was the cornerstone of their recent campaign. Cape Breton University political scientist Professor Tom Urbanek says that the province-wide tour emphasizes healthcare remains and the priority is for Houston's government. The president of Doctors Nova Scotia agrees that recruitment is a big issue facing the province. She says the tour is a good way for government to start its mandate. The Speak Up for Healthcare tour takes place September 20th to 23rd. The funeral for the Amherst family killed in a fire in Millvale last weekend has been set for Friday in downtown Amherst. The service will commemorate the lives of 4 children and 2 adults, and that'll take place at 1 p.m. at Victoria Square in downtown Amherst. R.J. Sears and Michelle Robertson and their children, Madison, 11, Robert, 8, Jackson, 4, and Colin, 3, were found dead in the camper trailer on Sunday. The family has gone there. They went there for the weekend to celebrate the 3-year-old's youngest child's birthday. On Friday, the Office of the Fire Marshal said it had concluded its investigation was recorded as a accidental fire. Nova Scotia is reporting 55 new cases of COVID-19 and 88 recoveries since last update on Friday. 34 of the cases are in the Central Zone, 24 close contacts to previous reported cases, 3 are related to travel, 7 under investigation. 13 cases in the Northern Zone, 11 are close contacts to previously reported cases, 2 are under investigation. 5 cases in the Western Zone, 2 are related to travel, 2 are close contacts to previously reported cases, 1 under investigation. There are 3 cases in the Eastern Zone, all related to travel. As of today, Nova Scotia has 129 active cases of COVID-19. Of those, 8 people are in hospital. When the province walked back the plan to implement Phase 5 of their reopening plan this week, it meant mandatory masking in Nova Scotia schools wouldn't end on September 20th after all. The decision comes after an influx of COVID-19 cases in the days leading up to the beginning of Phase 5. With the community spread in both Northern Zone and Eastern Zone and Central Zone, Phase 4 will remain in place until October 4th, when the province's proof of vaccination program is slated to begin. Paul Walsney, president of the Nova Scotia Teachers Union, believes remaining in Phase 4 is the right choice for the time being, particularly for the 2/3 of the students who remain unvaccinated of COVID-19. There's just 2 weeks to go in the 2000 Major League Baseball regular season. There's a thrilling National League West race ramping through between baseball's 2 great teams, the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers. The wildcard race has crowded in both leagues with 3 American League East teams, the Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, and the Toronto Blue Jays front and center. And then there are the players looking to put the finishing touches on their awards, the MVP, the Cy Young Award, and Rookie of the Year. The Toronto Blue Jays are in Tampa Bay tonight, the New York Yankees hosting Texas tonight, and the Boston Red Sox are off tonight. Weather-wise, we got clear skies in the forecast for tonight. We got some fog patches developing overnight with lows of 8 degrees. Tomorrow's going to be a sunny day. Those fog patches are going to dissipate early in the morning. Highs will get up to 21 degrees. Clear skies in the forecast for tomorrow night with fog patches overnight with a low going down to 11 degrees. Wednesday, a sunny day, a high of 21. Thursday, a mix of sun and clouds with a high of 23. Friday, a mix of sun and clouds, high of 23. And the long-range forecast for Saturday and Sunday, a mix of sun and clouds on Saturday with a high of 22. And on Sunday, cloudy with 60% chance of showers, a high of 20 degrees. That's your CIOE news update. I'm Ron James.
And welcome back, folks, to Decision 2021 here at 97.5 CIOE FM radio in Sackville, Nova Scotia, the heart of Nova Scotia. We want to welcome you to with us tonight. I see the polls are closing in Newfoundland. We have with us now that joined us Donelda McIsaac. Welcome, Donelda. It's nice to see you here tonight. And we also have Jeff Boyd. Welcome, Jeff.
Good to be here.
So I wonder, just for our audience sake, can you just tell them a little bit about yourself?
Okay, well, I'm actually originally from Newfoundland, so I'm watching Newfoundland keenly
Oh,
here
there you
tonight. Moved to Nova Scotia about 15 years ago to start and raise my family here. I'm a certified investment manager and senior consultant at IG Wealth, and a bit of a political junkie. So
Right on.
that's me.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. Donelda.
Hi, well, I'm a social and health advocate, and I'm also office manager here at CIOE.
Wonderful.
And you were a wonderful provincial candidate, so I want that to be on the record. And by the way, Jeff, my son-in-law is from Newfoundland, so I share your pain.
Now, Al, be nice, be nice. I'm half Newfoundlander. My mother's from Newfoundland. So, Donelda, you did an excellent job in the campaign, and it's
Thank you.
always, you know, no matter win or lose, it's a tough go for anybody, and you did an excellent job, and I want to congratulate you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we were talking about Quebec. We could go on some more, talk a little bit about that before we move on. I see it's going, I think, pretty much the way people had expected. We're about 300 votes in the difference in Newfoundland. Do you think it'll be like that in Quebec?
Yes, it's going to be back and forth. The question is, the Quebec, the Parti Québécois, or the Bloc, pardon me, I get the two of them confused. But if they can make inroads, if they've scored well from the debates, they could cause the Liberals some concern. But I don't see the Conservative Party of Canada making too many inroads in Quebec. I just don't see it. He's not bilingual. If he is, excuse the expression, it's a bastard form of French. But I don't think he's registering with the people of Quebec. We'll see.
What about the NDP?
No, they're going nowhere. They're going nowhere. They'll do very well in BC. That's where their strong points are. That's where Singh is right now. He's voted in the advance poll, and he's in Vancouver attending party affairs. But no, they'll score well there. They're at the point where he's already made the statement that he's willing to have the balance of power in a minority situation with either the Liberals or Conservatives, and he's not fussy which one. Only point he's made, and I made this in the last half hour, is that he insists that whoever is the government, that they adopt his principle on taxing the rich. And that's going to be interesting because it's, as I mentioned before, it's not a level playing field for Canadians, and it's about time we had a level playing field. I've worked for people, and I worked for one man in particular who had 17% of the shares of the Royal Bank of Canada. Now, translate that into dollars.
Al,
What
just, if their bloc aren't gonna get the votes, and the NDP aren't gonna get the votes in Quebec, who's gonna get them?
Gee, would it be the Liberals?
So
You
you
know,
think the Liberals?
by process
Denelda, can you,
process of elimination, I just gave it to you.
can you, give us a few words on this topic, or?
Well, I think as far as Quebec is concerned, it's going to be interesting. That's the one I'm watching. I think Trudeau lost a really good opportunity when the night of the debate, when it was perceived that Quebec was being classified as a racist province. Trudeau, with a seat in the province, that was a perfect opportunity for him to step up and say something. You know, like, I don't think it's positive that this province is racist, whatever. O'Toole jumped in onto it, right? And sort of didn't really do it, but this is where the Bloc is gaining a lot of momentum from that, and Trudeau not stepping up. The other thing is, too, the Anglophones and the Francophones in the province, they're both feeling let down, neglected. So there's a lot going on there. So I think it's going to be interesting, but I do think the Liberals will show strong.
Yeah, I'm tending to think that the Bloc are actually gonna pick up a couple seats.
Yeah, so do I.
And the NDP are too. I really don't think that, I don't know that the Conservatives will, but Jeff, what do you think?
Well, I was going to say what Danella said, because I think that was a key cutting point, was the debate when effectively the message to Quebecers was the rest of the country is calling us racist because of the Bill 21. The difference between, say, a Jack Layton and a Jagmeet Singh is there's more talk about diversity, inclusion, climate change, and not about the working class movement that was more Jack Layton's movement. So whether the working class, more rural French Quebecer is thinking about the same kinds of things. Again, Al brought up taxing the rich. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that resonates with working class people. So are those Jack Layton voters from whatever it was 12 years ago, are those going to come back out, or are they going to, or is that vote going somewhere else? I tend to think the Bloc are going to pick up more than a few seats. I think there's going to be a lot of splits, and but I don't think the Liberals are going to get those seats.
No, I don't. I tend not to think. I tend to agree that it's going to be the Bloc and the NDP that are going to pick up those seats.
I have the Bloc down for 25 seats. That's in my predictions. What I've predicted, most likely the Liberals 150 seats, Conservatives 124, NDP 36, Bloc 25, Green Party 2, and the People's Party of Canada 1. And that's how I'm looking. There are lots of issues here in Nova Scotia. Lots of issues. There's things going on that we should be looking at, because this is our home turf. I mean, to be honest with you, and the most important thing right now, Teoscar just hit a home run. It's 1-0 for the Jays. So,
Yes, that is the most important.
but no, I'd like to talk about the various ridings. There's lots to talk about in
Yes,
Nova Scotia.
let's do it. The polls,
And
I think,
maybe,
have closed.
maybe start, you mentioned before, Chris d'Entremont, he was the only Conservative who won in 19, but, my projections right now is a possibility. Now, it's not carved in stone, but there's a possibility the Conservatives could win 4 seats in Nova Scotia. Chris d'Entremont, and if there's any justice in the world, the Conservatives will win the seat in South Shore and get rid of Bernadette Jordan, who just made a farce of that office. Lenore Zahn, unfortunately, is in trouble in Cumberland, Colchester, and probably one of the Cape Breton seats. So there's 4. All of a sudden, it goes from 1 seat to 4 seats. So there's that possibility. Now, in the Southwest, West Nova, d'Entremont last time he beat the incumbent by 39% to the Liberals 36%. Not a very big margin, but this time he has really benefited from the bounce from what has happened in the dispute down there with the fisheries, and how the Bernadette Jordan has blown it, and that is really going to help him. So I suspect it'll be a close to a romp. There's a new candidate, it's Alexis Chamberlain for the Liberal Party. but I think it's going to be a bit of a romp. I think he probably double that, not double, but increase, double the majority. Instead of 3%, he probably end up with 6 or 8% ahead of
Yes,
his
yes,
conservative candidate.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Denell?
agree. I would totally agree.
Yeah. Jeff, any comments on, what you see here in Nova Scotia going to happen?
I had those same four areas on my list of things that could turn conservative. My view is the NDP got one shot at one riding, which is Halifax. And other than that, we're just going to see if those four ridings, with Chris D'Entremont, of course, already being the lone conservative candidate, to pick up 3 more. But I'll take a minute, though, to just mention that in Newfoundland, there was, if you'd asked me before the night started, I would have said that they could run the table, the Liberals in Newfoundland.
Yes.
There was one lone riding in St. John's East that was held by the NDP. Looks like it might be switching Liberal. But the big news is there was one riding, I think, that, again, before the night started, that the Conservatives had a shot at. They're now leading that riding. But one riding they're leading in is, sorry, it's a long name, Costa Bay Central Notre Dame. That was Scott Sims. He won that by 15% or something last time. It's now a tight race.
Oh, yeah.
There's another one.
Which area is that?
That's kind of the central Newfoundland,
Okay.
Grand Falls area, that, right?
Yep.
So what we're seeing, we're wondering if it's starting to look a little bit like we saw in the provincial, where we saw those ones that we thought were supposed to be close, races that weren't supposed to be close, were getting close.
Yep.
And we're starting to see a little bit of that. And now I just noticed that former Jack Harris NDP, the very popular Newfoundlander, just turned orange again. So I think Liberals would have liked to see a sweep coming out of Newfoundland. And as it shows right now, they're looking to lose a couple of seats coming out of Newfoundland.
Yep.
And if that's a start of a trend, and if we see a similar thing across, we're just going to see how much that hurts. I'm pretty sure Aaron O'Toole feels pretty good about the early numbers coming in.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting because Newfoundland, that's, every seat's going to count this time. So it's.
Well, this is the area of ABC, anything but conservative from the Danny Williams era.
Yeah.
So they were all wiped out. And,
So
and
there's nobody, the premier there today is not an ABCer, I don't think. So that's.
And Christia Freeland was there in those districts over the weekend. So they obviously felt either A, they had to play defense or offense to pick up some areas. So that's one to watch.
She's going to be the next leader anyway.
I just don't think people had enough of the issues in this event. In this campaign. There just wasn't enough.
But
There was so much backbiting going back and forth. The issues that really impact people weren't on the table. They were mentioned, but nobody went in depth over them.
speaking of the issues, just before we go back to some numbers, one of the issues that I'm interested to see how it plays out this time is the whole business about putting the ministers, the female ministers, out of cabinet because they didn't agree with Mr. Trudeau on a number of issues. And so do you think, Donalda, that's going to have how that is going to play out with women?
Definitely. That along with the fact, I think he's also lost a lot of the young vote. I think the young people have become very disillusioned
Yes.
with him. And, the same ways, none of the leaders on this platform, as far as I was concerned, dealt with how they will tackle systemic racism in this country for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. It's one thing to say everybody's included, but nobody had a platform that really spoke about that. And I think that also hits at the females in the Trudeau cabinet.
Yes, and I think that, a lot of the Indigenous communities across the country felt that Trudeau was their salvation or,
Yes.
was going to do a lot more than what he did. And I don't know what effect that's going to have this time around. Because.
Well, I think it's going to be very interesting because after, 2 terms in, you can only promise clean water
So
for
many
so long.
times, yeah.
Right? And then with the children, finding the graves, there's just a lot there.
Yeah.
That I don't think, it's going to be hard for him to come through on these ones.
Yeah.
Let's look at the overall picture, because I was so upset with this campaign. There's absolutely no sense of decency among politicians today. Now, I mean, the odd person is excluded, and yourself, I referred to that, Donalda, you're not of that nature. But this business of turning rocks and throwing dirt. And it got to the point where I didn't want to look at social media, especially social media. They blamed Trudeau for everything except the famine in Ethiopia, and if they had thought of that, they'd have added that too. It's just ridiculous. I mean, it has to get back to some sort of order.
Civility.
And civility, and yes, what happened with Dr. Strang's host. That, I mean,
Totally unacceptable.
Craig's back here and taking a break, but the RCMP were there. Arrest them. I mean, find a rule, find a law. Tell them they broke something, they stepped on a rock, but they did something. But let's start dealing with these people. They can't take our world over. And that's the point that's getting to me. It's the squeaky wheel that's getting all the grease.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to get Craig involved, I guess, to make sure he can straighten them out for us.
Well, anyway.
I did want to come back to Donalda and your comments about the youth, because you're absolutely right. When Justin Trudeau came on the scene in 2015, he was a rock star.
He was.
You know, he was promising to legalize marijuana and get rid of everybody's convictions. And, you know, it just didn't, and he did legalize it.
I think the one point you missed there, he was an alternative to Stephen Harper. And the world wanted rid of Stephen Harper, the world being Canada. And we lined up. I never saw lineups for people for voting like we did in 2015. It was about getting rid of Stephen Harper. Yes, Trudeau had a little bit of shine to him, but nothing, the whole thing was get rid of Stephen Harper, and he was the best alternative.
Yes, my point is though, Donalda, do you think that is that rock star shine gone away, or?
I think so, and I think he brought a hopefulness. All of a sudden, young people counted, and they felt that they really had a voice. But over a period of time, nothing really changed, you know, and their student debt really wasn't taken away the way it was promised to be taken away. Yeah. So I think all of those things played a part. And of course, you know, we have to look at COVID. COVID has played a big part in how it has influenced this election as well. Because for 18 months, governments really came to a halt. So it's kind of unfair in a way. We don't know what would have taken place over these past 18 months.
That's true.
You know,
that's true.
So I think, you know, it's easy to be on opposition.
Yeah. Jeff, are you looking at numbers there, or you want to share it? You want to share anything with us, or?
Well, I always am, but just to focus in on the COVID results, like, I think what happened in the Nova Scotia election is there was no so-called COVID bounce. If anything, some people lost their seats. And again, I said at the time, did that mean that Dr. Strang got most of the credit? Maybe some went to Mr. McNeil, but very little of that translated to party votes in rural areas and things like that. So we're going to wonder now if we're going to see the same thing broadly in this election. Where is there, you know, if we thought there was a COVID bounce when Mr. Trudeau called the election, doesn't seem to be one now. So this is, and then again, the plans to come out of this. There, you know, we saw the frustration in different areas with people with the lockdowns. We saw votes go in different directions than what were expected. And, you know, who's got the plan to come out of COVID means a lot of different things. There's a lot of that is economics. I can go on at length with that, but I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for. I think the pandemic was still the #1 issue for most people.
But the other thing is, too, the pandemic isn't the only thing. And when we talk about the pandemic, it overshadows all of the problems that's going on in healthcare.
True.
And so that's where the problem is, you know, thinking, we'll solve COVID, we're going to come out of this. Nobody's thinking about the collateral damage that's followed. And all of the social isolations and things that have taken place because of COVID.
But
yes.
they have to solve it, and that's the problem. Therein lies the problem. The others, everything else can wait. They've got to solve COVID, and it could have been an issue. But I want to look at the South Shore. I've been about South Shore St. Margaret's. Bernadette Jordan, she's the incumbent there, federal cabinet minister. To me, she absolutely blew the fisheries issue. along with Lake Pisiquid and Windsor with draining that. It was very interesting in the Cheshire area. There's one street, there was a sign that said, "Vote her out." And she was campaigning on that street in an SUV. And when she was done campaigning, the sign was gone.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing. Anyway,
No, I think there's actually some social media footage of that footage, that sign disappearing, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, but.
so now, in the last election, Rick Perkins, who was running for the Conservative Party of Canada again this time, he lost to Bernadette Jordan 42% to 29%, sizable margin. Right now, as of today, Perkins is winning the sign war. And he said today, if elected, get this, Perkins in his campaign literature says that he will do what the people want, not the prime minister. Yeah, right.
Well,
Does he-
I know Rick Perkins, and he's
Yeah.
a formidable person.
Yeah, I
And-
think he's gonna win.
Yeah, I do too. I
Yeah.
do too. I think that Bernadette, unfortunately, she just hasn't been responsive enough to people, not only the fishermen, which is going to cost her a lot of votes, because I know,
That's right.
people in
Oh,
Terrence Bay and Westover and right down along the shore. Anyone in a fishing village is not voting for this time around.
There's
But
still,
not only that, but it's just the little things, those, trying to help with the pension, and I don't think she was effective, and that's I think that's gonna
Well,
have an effect on it.
it's also, it's gonna have an impact on Kelly Blois in King's Hants. Now, he's quite popular, and he held the seat for when Scott Bryson stepped down. But her handling of draining Lake Pisiquid, right now, it's a mud flat. You drive through Windsor and you look to your left going over the causeway, and it's a mud flat. And people built homes along the lake, beautiful homes along the lake. They're now staring at mud.
Yeah.
And, and she's done nothing, and they begged her. I mean, Cody Boyce wrote her a personal letter and saying, please do something. Let the water in until we get this issue settled. She refuses to do anything, and that could affect him. Mark Parent is running for the Conservatives, former provincial cabinet minister. Interesting, Mark, in this election, he was going door to door riding his bicycle. Yeah.
Good for him.
Yep, so, environment, do you want to remote this? Yeah, so there,
He's an interesting guy, Mark Perron.
he's different, yes.
Jeff, any updates there? Newfoundland, anybody declared in Newfoundland yet?
Well, there's going to be a few people declared. There's a few obvious ones that are going to be, Seamus O'Regan is going to win his seat. Those were kind of known before the night started, but Labrador is going to stay. But like I said, of those 3 or 4 seats, it's going to be interesting. I will also say that we have the first early results in for Cumberland Colchester, and it's a very small sample. But this is going to be one that's going to be interesting to watch tonight, because this could switch to Conservative. Right now, Stephen Ellis is up. It's only 140 votes in, but he's up basically 43% to 36%. So this one, Lenore's on, could flip tonight.
Yeah, I was up that way a couple times during the last month, and I noticed that he had a lot of signs throughout the riding.
Yep.
And just when I talked to people at different times, when I stopped, in a store or something, I happen to always try to, engage people, and there was a lot of people who liked him. So it will be interesting
And
to
of course,
see.
Aaron O'Toole made a big stop there on Friday and had
Yeah,
and
that's right.
that's a sign that they think they can take that seat.
Yep.
Well, there's a bit of a problem there. Daniel Osborne, who was the NDP candidate, had to drop out because of his comments about Auschwitz. How dumb was that? Anyway.
But I don't think that helps the Conservatives.
No, well, no, but my point is this, those people are going to vote. Now, they won't vote Conservative. The last thing that an NDP would do is vote Conservative. But they might vote for Lenore Razan, who was one of them at one point in time.
Yeah.
So I got a feeling that might help her, might but I'm still calling that as a conservative seat.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be
I think it's
interesting.
going to go conservative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's have a look. What about Halifax? That Halifax seat now, Andy Fillmore's been, popular, two-time, won 2 elections. It's been, NDP for a lot of years federally. Federal leader was there for a while, and the woman who's running against Andy,
Lisa Roberts.
Lisa Roberts, yep, she was an MLA and stepped down. She was confident enough to step down from her provincial seat to run federally. Now that's got to tell you something, that she's feeling pretty confident.
My gut feeling is that Andy will hang on. I think he's been a very effective member of Parliament. And what I like about him, and this issue, well, Michelle's not here, with the infilling of the arm, he has pledged to stop that. He said, I will stop it. And he's the first one. That's a local issue. That's a hot button issue.
It is, yeah.
And he has taken a stance on it. I don't believe, I think it'll be closer, but I think Andy will prevail there. The one that concerns me is Halifax West, and that is different in that Eleanor Humphreys is the Conservative candidate, former CEO of the airport.
Yeah,
Very, very capable lady
yeah,
against Diab.
yeah.
And right now, the word is that the Conservatives could win that seat.
Is that right? Because she is a formidable person.
She's a very,
No question
oh,
about
her
it.
background is incredible.
Yeah.
And so that is going to be interesting. What might save it for Diab is if she calls on the Lebanese community, and there's a tremendous Arab population within that riding. The biggest Arab population in Nova Scotia is in Halifax West. And if she can muster that vote, that may save it for her.
Yeah, I see she's ahead there by, I don't know how many polls that is, but she's a little bit ahead, 20-something votes.
I think she stands a very good chance because she's also very good with youth.
Yep.
Like she shows up.
She is,
She
and-
shows up with a lot of youth. She shows up at different functions and she's very community.
Yeah, I work with Lena a lot because through the Parkview News, and I have lots of opportunities to introduce her at different functions, and I always introduce her as the hardest working MLA in Nova Scotia. She goes to everything.
She does.
She responds to everybody. She'll talk to anybody. So it's going to be interesting if Eleanor Humphreys can convey her persona enough to overcome that, because Lena is she was a very popular MLA, and if she can spread that across the federal riding, that persona, then she'll do
That's why I
well.
think if she did go down, she's going down to a blue wave. She's not going down to lack of credibility.
I think you're
And
absolutely
that-
right. Yeah.
Because that's
Yeah.
the
That's a
only
good
way.
point. Now, that's exactly, nobody's been talking about the blue wave. And if there was a blue wave in Nova Scotia, you're very much aware of that. And if nationally, if it happened, I could sense it. I could feel it in the early days. I think it's dissipated in the recent last couple of weeks. But the place where they've lost ground, Conservatives that is in Ontario. Ontario, for some reason, they've dug their heels in. Now, maybe it's because of the idiot that they have for prime minister, or for premier,
Yeah.
but something has caused them to be anti-conservative.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know what it is, because they certainly love that premier. They voted him in, so they must have thought something good of him.
Doug Ford?
Yeah.
Oh, they
yeah.
made a mistake, yes. Well, I mean, that's proved out. I mean, he's bundled what they had yesterday, was it 2,000 cases
Yes.
of COVID? 2,000
Yeah,
cases in one day?
it's going back up, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I
Definitely going
mean,
back up.
he has blown that unbelievable, so.
Look, it's time for another break, but I want to, before we do that, I want to thank our technical director, Russell Gross, and our technician, Andrew Crawford, for doing such a wonderful job, and we always need to have our technicians with us to make these things happen. So thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. Thank you, Jeff and Donalda, and we'll have you back again in a little while.
1-0, top of the third.
1-0, top of the third. Okay, now we're going to go to Ron James. Thank you, Ron. Here's the news.
I'm Ron James with the CIOE News Update. The polls are now closed. Canadians have voted for their first ever pandemic election after 36-day campaign. This was the shortest possible election Canada could have had. And why does it feel so long? Well, maybe because nobody really wanted it. Today marks the kickoff for the Progressive Conservatives Speak Up for Healthcare tour across Nova Scotia, where Premier Houston and his health ministers will tour the province, gathering feedback from frontline healthcare workers. The new government is focused on making changes to the healthcare system. Sometimes that was the cornerstone of their recent campaign. Gay Breton University political scientist Professor Tom Urbanek says that the province-wide tour emphasizes healthcare remains and the priority is for Houston's government. The president of Doctors Nova Scotia agrees that recruitment is a big issue facing the province. She says the tour is a good way for government to start its mandate. The Speak Up for Healthcare tour takes place September 20th to 23rd. The funeral for the Amherst family killed in a fire in Millvale last weekend has been set for Friday in downtown Amherst. The service will commemorate the lives of 4 children and 2 adults, and that'll take place at 1 p.m. at Victoria Square in downtown Amherst. R.J. Sears and Michelle Robertson and their children, Madison, 11, Robert, 8, Jackson, 4, and Colin, 3, were found dead in the camper trailer on Sunday. The family has gone there. They went there for the weekend to celebrate the 3-year-old's youngest child's birthday. On Friday, the Office of the Fire Marshal said it had concluded its investigation was recorded as a accidental fire. Nova Scotia is reporting 55 new cases of COVID-19 and 88 recoveries since last update on Friday. 34 of the cases are in the Central Zone, 24 close contacts to previous reported cases, 3 are related to travel, 7 under investigation. 13 cases in the Northern Zone, 11 are close contacts to previously reported cases, 2 are under investigation. 5 cases in the Western Zone, 2 are related to travel, 2 are close contacts to previously reported cases, 1 under investigation. There are 3 cases in the Eastern Zone, all related to travel. As of today, Nova Scotia has 129 active cases of COVID-19. Of those, 8 people are in hospital. When the province walked back the plan to implement Phase 5 of their reopening plan this week, it meant mandatory masking in Nova Scotia schools wouldn't end on September 20th after all. The decision comes after an influx of COVID-19 cases in the days leading up to the beginning of Phase 5. With the community spread in both Northern Zone and Eastern Zone and Central Zone, Phase 4 will remain in place until October 4th, when the province's proof of vaccination program is slated to begin. Paul Walsney, president of the Nova Scotia Teachers Union, believes remaining in Phase 4 is the right choice for the time being, particularly for the 2/3 of the students who remain unvaccinated of COVID-19. There is just 2 weeks to go in the 2000 Major League Baseball regular season. There's a thrilling National League West race ramping through between baseball's 2 great teams, the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers. The wildcard race has crowded in both leagues with 3 American League East teams, the Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, and the Toronto Blue Jays front and center. And then there are the players looking to put the finishing touches on their awards, the MVP, the Cy Young Award, and Rookie of the Year. The Toronto Blue Jays are in Tampa Bay tonight, the New York Yankees hosting Texas tonight, and the Boston Red Sox are off tonight. Weather-wise, we got clear skies in the forecast for tonight. We got some fog patches developing overnight with lows of 8 degrees. Tomorrow's going to be a sunny day. Those fog patches are going to dissipate early in the morning. Highs will get up to 21 degrees. Clear skies in the forecast for tomorrow night with fog patches overnight with a low going down to 11 degrees. Wednesday, a sunny day, a high of 21. Thursday, a mix of sun and clouds with a high of 23. Friday, a mix of sun and clouds, high of 23. And the long-range forecast for Saturday and Sunday, a mix of sun and clouds on Saturday with a high of 22. And on Sunday, cloudy with 60% chance of showers, a high of 20 degrees. That's your CIOE News Update. I'm Ron James.
And welcome back to Decision 2021 here at 97.5 CIOE FM radio in Sackville, Nova Scotia. And we want to welcome back Michelle and Craig. We'll get back into some discussion here. I'm just looking at 2.5% of the votes counted in Nova Scotia, and the Conservatives are less than 100 votes ahead. What I mean, that's a very small percentage. So they're coming in, but it's staying neck and neck, and even NDP is 800. So PPC 202 and the Green 79. So that's very small. It's only 2 polls. So, what do you think, folks? We seeing anything happen here, or is it just what we thought was going to be neck and neck? What do you think, Michelle?
I think it's just really too early to say anything. Even Newfoundland actually is sort of fluttering back and forth, the central area. I mean, the coastal areas are like the West Long Range Mountains and Bonavista, Burin, Trinity. They're fairly solidly liberal, but the center is, going back and forth liberal. So it's really, even Newfoundland is not we're not seeing much there.
Yeah, that seat that Seamus is in, they're pretty much expecting that to stay.
Yeah.
Stay his.
Yeah.
But you're right, there could be a few other in the interior that might change.
Yeah, so, yeah. And I hadn't realized, actually, so all the local special ballots are not even going to begin to be counted until tomorrow, apparently. So that's a huge amount of
That's
material.
the advance poll.
Yeah.
That's the advance material.
I
Yeah,
think
that's a
there's
lot of
6.8 million
material.
in advance polls.
Lordy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
we might be a couple of days finding out who wins.
it could be,
I hope you got a lot of sandwiches.
it could be, it could be definitely, well into the night and into tomorrow for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's very close, yes.
Then it's gonna be very close. There's an interesting one, Sackville Preston.
Yeah.
Daryl Sampson is the incumbent. Don't know Angela Conrad that well, but I hear that she is well-known in the community. Do you folks know?
Well, Angela, I didn't, I had a text from Jim David. Jim is the head of the Conservative Association in Nova Scotia, executive director. And I just made the observation. I said, well, I haven't had her, she wasn't at my door. I have no way of judging her. I mean, I want to meet all the candidates, especially the ones from the main parties. To be honest, there's three candidates I wanted to meet. And Daryl Sampson came to our door, didn't say, just put a thing that rang our doorbell and ran. She never showed up, and the Conservative, or the NDP candidate never showed up. So I reached out to Jim David and I told him that, and within 5 minutes, she texted me and said, look, I'm sorry, Bob, I have 71,000 doors I've got to try to get to, I won't get to them all. And I said, good, I'll look you up, I'll research you. Thanks for getting back to me promptly. And that was it. That's the only contact I had with her. So, but she is, the Conrad name in Dartmouth is a well-known name. And that may score well for her. But my reading so far is that Daryl Sampson will hold on to the riding. It's going to be tight, but tighter than it was before. But I think he will hold on to the riding. Remember, this is the guy who beat Peter Stauffer. And I recall right in this room, or maybe next door when we were there, Daryl was walking by me, and this was like 2 or 3 days prior to the election. And I said to him, I said, oh, by the way, Daryl, I said, good luck. I said, the first time around, I said, sometimes you get established, and then that really makes it good for you the second time. And he stopped and looked at me, and he said, I'm going to win. and okay, and he did, big time. So, I'm not writing him off.
No, and he gets, I look at Daryl, and he's out at everything. I know you mentioned that earlier about Lena at Diab. Daryl's out there at everything, and has definitely made his face well-known. And if he can get, those folks that do support him out to the polls, and you're right, I think he's formidable. It'd be a hard one to
Yeah, and there's a big French population Acadian population, I should say.
Yep.
Within our riding.
True.
And I think he plays well to that.
No
And he
question.
was, what, superintendent of schools for the French? Yes, I think he was superintendent of schools for the,
CSFA.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, that will help him a lot.
Yeah.
That would bode well for him. And he's a very personable guy.
Yep.
And the thing that he's really got going for him is he's been advertising in the Parkview News right from the very No, he is a wonderful person.
No, he's used this station too with his ads, but, no, I think it's gonna take a lot to knock him off.
So we're seeing now Venus there.
Yeah, early one, I mean, 8 out of 261, but you see that the DF has a
Growing lead, yeah, for sure.
pretty growing lead.
Is there any topics that come to mind that you'd like to bring up? Anybody? I know we talked, one thing we didn't talk about a whole lot, we touched on it a little bit, is the affordable housing. It's a big issue here in Halifax, for sure. It's a big issue in Ontario and Toronto and in
NBC.
the
Yeah.
West Coast. It's huge
Yeah.
in the West Coast.
Yep.
What is the answer to Michelle? Can you?
Well, I have been an advocate for a long time for a federal housing policy, and I think that the only way that you're going to get, consistent affordable housing across the country is if you have a policy that makes sure that you don't just end up moving speculative investment from one place to the other, because I always say it's like a finger on a grapeseed. As soon as you make it more difficult to speculate in one center, it just moves to the next. And I mean, I hear stories about, the increasing difficulty in finding places in Peterborough and some of the secondary markets outside of Toronto. As soon as Toronto made moves to make speculation less appealing, those were the places life got difficult. And so you need a federal government to say, okay, these are the blanket terms for making sure housing remains affordable and where necessary that affordable housing is built or created.
But Michelle, I understand what you're saying, but
Yeah.
it's not going to be an instant cure, and they're looking for an instant cure, and I don't think it's there. I mean, it's going to take years to develop the housing and to get people into houses. Now, the Liberals have come up with something, what is it? They announced it through CMHC. They're going to create,
Yep.
1,000,004 homes or but that takes years to do that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's.
In the meantime, people are living in parks and in tents.
And that's what governments are good at. They're good
Yeah.
at saying, we're gonna throw all
Oh,
this
yeah,
money.
I
in,
We're
but-
going to create.
I don't believe a bit of it, honest to goodness. To me, it's just a crock. They're going to get through, they're going to buy time to get past the issue, and once the election's over, forget it.
And there has to be some kind of comprehensiveness to it that includes both the municipalities and the province, so that it's not a pass the buck where it is right now, where you see some of the stuff that's happened in the HRM, and you're the mayor saying, well, I thought the province was doing this. Like, somebody's got to be able to say the buck stops here. That's
Oh,
crazy.
yeah. That's really got to stop. Yeah.
And if the federal government can lead the way in some respects, obviously, it would be great, but you're right, it needs to be more than just, something that's going to happen 6 years down the road, when people are feeling the crunch right now.
Well, I got to say, one of the things that happens in Nova Scotia, which is really unusual, is that service exchange. I think we talked about this before. Service exchange means that Nova Scotia municipalities don't have to worry about the cost of providing social services. They've got to worry about roads and concrete infrastructure, but they don't have to worry about social services, which means they don't have to worry about housing or housing affordability. That's a big problem. It's unique to Nova Scotia.
And I was dead set against
Yeah.
it when they did it. I was dead
Yep.
set against amalgamation, because that's what created all these problems.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Back before amalgamation, municipalities were responsible for housing, and they were responsible for social services, and they deal directly with the people in the communities more closely than MLAs or MPs,
Yeah.
certainly closer
Yeah.
than MPs.
Yeah.
And so they had to answer those questions, but now they can say, hey, it's the federal government's job,
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's
Buck passing is a favorite sport.
one of the biggest parts of the problem right there.
Amalgamation was the biggest cover-up ever. I mean, that was done to cover up the sins of a few people in power. And I'm not going to go into details, but I'll tell you this much. That was a shameful thing. And I chaired a couple of the public meetings, and believe me.
Yeah, I was there when it happened, and
Yeah.
it was the biggest disappointment
Yeah.
and one of the biggest reasons why
I would agree with you there.
I
Yeah.
did not support the Liberals
Yeah.
after that. It was disgraceful what happened. But anyway, you're right,
There you
right.
go.
It's,
There-
Yeah,
there's-
but.
Yeah, you
so-
see Bernadette Jordan there, she was,
Perkins is
she's
ahead
falling
of
behind a
Jordan.
little.
Yes, a little bit.
All right.
Not enough.
it'll be interesting to see if that goes like that for the whole night.
Less than 10% of
The
the
Holy,
polls.
the Holy Land for a better view. All right.
The unfortunate reality is I don't think she's really helped herself with any decisions with regard to the fisheries, so.
Oh, terrible,
You know.
terrible. And you just don't know where these votes are coming from. If down in the Meteghan, or not Meteghan area, down in the Pubnico area, she's going to get buried down there.
Yeah.
Well, Southwest Nova,
Yeah,
but she's not actually running there, though.
No.
But you're right, people will be talking about it.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
right, they will be
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about it.
well, that's going to, as I say, Chris Diontamont's going to benefit from the bounce there.
Yeah.
And then Kelly Blois over in King's Hants may find himself in trouble because of what she did to Lake Pisiquid. She's been a bloody disaster.
It's, and
I'm not going to sugarcoat the pill. She's been a bloody disaster.
she'll do well, you're still in the Chesters and in those, maybe
I don't know.
Bridgewater, but once you get outside, it's an very urban
That's
rural
right.
mix, right? And when you get into those fishing villages, that's where she is in trouble.
Yep.
I know.
Well, it can be really hard on a minister, actually, to be a minister and, a minister running at home has sort of two problems to face. I mean, they
Yeah.
got to deal with, it's a little bit like Annamie Paul, I think, as the head of the Green Party, she decided she was just going to defend her own seat. And this is what a minister eventually has to do, is defend their own seat, but they have ministerial decisions, so.
Yes,
Yeah.
unless you do like what's the guy that, he's the host leader now from New Brunswick, for the Liberals. His father was there before him, not LeBlanc, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dominic LeBlanc.
Dominic, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Unless you do like Dominic's father did and just move the whole department right to your riding. Then you're pretty good because you give everybody jobs and lots of money coming into the community.
Yeah.
But I don't think that was in the cards for Bernadette.
No.
What else would you like to talk about now? I think we touched on Jagmeet,
Wow.
the NDP. It is gonna be hard, I think, for them because he had one, just that tax the rich seemed to be his only real card that he played. Go ahead.
I would have to
Craig.
say this, he'll never, in my mind, Jagmeet will never be prime minister. In fact, I'll be surprised if he lasts after this election. I think he's going to have to face a leadership review, and I think the knives will come out. And that's the bottom line there. I think his time on the throne is going to be short-lived.
Well, I think some of that's gonna depend though on how they do this time around.
Yeah.
If they go up,
They're
if
gonna
they
lose
go up in
seats.
the numbers,
Yeah.
respectively, then he may be able to hang on.
Yeah.
But if he just ends up maintaining status quo, then you're right, I would
And
say
that's,
that.
and that's basically what it's looking like. It's going to come down to what he does in BC, and that's their stronghold. And of course, they've elected provincial NDP governments, so they're well rooted in that province. So I'm predicting 36 seats for the NDP.
I'm also wondering what's gonna happen in Halifax Civil. I know that you guys
Yeah.
talked about that earlier, but, you look at the 20 years that Alexa and Megan Leslie were there. And don't get me wrong, I think Andy's done a great job. But Lisa Roberts has a lot of profile as well and did as an MLA.
Yeah,
And so I really wonder if the stronghold that she had as an MLA, if she's been able to turn those into federal votes, she might put Andy on the ropes for a minute.
Well, she'll clean up in the north end.
Well, that's,
You know.
that's it.
So-
Halifax is divided into different zones. And yes, she's going to be very strong in the north end, but I don't think that's going to resonate in the south end and in the west end.
Yes, that's exactly, you're right. It just depends on what happens in those other
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
Wow, look at
Liberals
that.
leading
Neck and neck,
96
what I
votes.
tell you.
What?
Very close,
7%,
very
neck and
close.
Yeah, 7 out of 186 polls. So the big question for me is really when we're going to know just what the turnout has been at the, today, and how that compares with all those advanced votes. Because again,
Yeah.
there's the pandemic factor.
Well.
A lot of people didn't want to be at the polls
And even
today.
comparisons to the last election that we had.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, what,
Good point.
in the provincial, I mean, it was, people came out and voted.
Yes.
So it'd be
We also had a
interesting.
record number of advanced polls as well in the provincial, right?
That's true,
Yeah.
that's true, yeah.
and what that split's going to be. So
And-
tonight could be,
And also, don't forget, within the provincial one, there was a sense of change. People wanted change, you could feel it. And I'm not saying I had that sense, but I could feel the sense of change. So that encouraged people to get out and express, and vote and exercise their
No question
franchise.
there.
So I think that was a big factor. I don't see the same thing in this election, not the same. And all the negativity, to me, that just kept turning me off. I mean, I couldn't abide it. I didn't look at social media. The ads on TV, they were disgusting. They were attack ads. And
Yeah.
well,
we've got to get past that. Somehow we got to get past that.
Michelle?
yeah, one of the things though, I mean, we've had a few examples. I mean, again, this is unusual because there's this kind of, I don't know, call it gotcha politics or what that's going on, because you get decisions being made, decisions which could have been made outside of an election period, and they're actually rendered during an election period. So what you've got is things like the candidate in, was it Dartmouth? Was it Troy Myers?
Yes.
Is that Dartmouth?
Yes.
Troy Myers,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
So, somebody has known about something for 2 years and decides to make it public on social media when there's less than 24 hours for it to be either redressed or for a substitute candidate to be put in. So there you go. It's a no candidate thing. Something similar was developing in Central Nova within the last couple of days. There were, calls for a candidate to resign because of things that had been said sometime before the election period. You have the issue of Jody Rabel-Wilson publishing her treatise about Trudeau during the election period.
Revenge. It was simply-
Yeah,
simply
so
revenge.
there was a whole lot of new mechanisms for actually, putting something down and detonating it during an election period.
She controlled the launch of that book. And for her to launch it just days before the federal election, that told me more about her than it did about Justin Trudeau.
Well, it certainly did look like revenge, no question about it. But is it fair? Would it be fair to create, a law that says you can't do that? What do you think about that? That's, because it did, it certainly destroyed the guy in Dartmouth.
Yeah.
Whatever chance he had,
Yeah.
he was cooked, his goose was cooked.
But this all speaks, I think, to sort of popular judgment as opposed to, our standard formal judgments, right? I mean, if all those things were on the table, if they had been, for instance, vetted by parties beforehand,
Yeah.
that would be one thing. In the Rabel-Wilson case, I mean, that was just something that she had the ability to do and therefore did.
Yep.
I think we probably saw something a bit similar in the, a little similar in the provincial election when that Owl's Head decision came down, not because it came down then, but because the judge who rendered it said, well, if you don't like it, go vote, which is kind of an odd thing to say during an election.
Yeah.
So there is this sense of, there's a lot of extra electoral things that can be brought into the electoral period when there's just no time to address them.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that, she had all kinds, Judy had all kinds of time, Rabel, with the book, had all kinds of time to, and why was it necessary in the middle of the election campaign for the judge to render his decision in the Owl's Head?
I think it was her decision, but
Or
yeah, I don't
her
know.
decision,
I would have thought,
Yeah, why
hold
not?
it,
Yeah,
just hold it till
yeah,
afterwards.
let the people decide.
I think you're.
Not
gonna-
urge them to the polls.
I think you're gonna see some refreshing things happening with the new premier. just the fact the other day, he had his health minister with Dr. Strang to do the briefing. That's the first time. He never ever put Deloria out there. I mean, that probably would have sent votes over the hill. But anyway,
I thought you were going to say with the new prime minister there for a minute.
We're going back to 3 weeks ago now.
He is doing some things, and he's reestablishing the Public Accounts Committee. So, I mean, I know we're in the provincial politics at the moment, but there's signs of good things happening. And as long as he continues in that vein, I think we're in good shape.
Yes, I do too. I think it's necessary. Those things are necessary.
Yep.
People deserve to be able to air their opinions
Yep.
in those formats, and to shut them down is, in my opinion, like, I agree with you.
Like he said,
That's not right.
this business of Rob Strang, come in front of the legislature, come in front of my office, protest in those sites. You have the right to protest, but do not go onto somebody's lawn and start acting like thugs.
Yep.
And that's what they were, a bunch of thugs. I mean, I got a boot that I would like to place some.
Now.
To bring it back around here.
Well, the boundaries are getting muddy, let's put it that way. Getting really muddy.
You know,
There we go, Daryl is up.
it's the NDP that's running behind Daryl Sampson
Yeah.
closely, not the
Well,
Conservatives at this point.
he's
It's
got
early.
about a 200 vote lead.
Exactly. I mean, it's really
Yeah.
early, but still, you know?
Yeah.
It's neck and neck.
Yeah.
And I want to give Bruce McKinnon credit. The other day, he had a wonderful cartoon of the People's Party leader and
Jagmeet Singh?
Aaron O'Toole.
Oh,
No,
sorry, okay.
Aaron O'Toole, pulling on the lunatic fringe. And I thought, did he ever capture it? Because
He's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think after the break, we're coming up to another break. We're almost there, I think, maybe within a few seconds. Thanks again, Craig and Michelle, for being here tonight. And it's just always so engaging, and I always am so interested in hearing your opinions on these issues. I think maybe if we can, our technician can maybe bring us up some of the Cape Breton areas ridings after the break, and I want to welcome Ron James back in for the news again.
I'm Ron James with the CIOE News Update. The polls are now closed. Canadians have voted for their first ever pandemic election after a 36-day campaign. This was the shortest possible election Canada could have had. And why does it feel so long? Well, maybe because nobody really wanted it. Today marks the kickoff for the Progressive Conservatives Speak Up for Healthcare tour across Nova Scotia, where Premier Houston and his health ministers will tour the province, gathering feedback from frontline healthcare workers. The new government is focused on making changes to the healthcare system. Sometimes that was the cornerstone of their recent campaign. Cape Breton University political scientist Professor Tom Urbaniak says that the province-wide tour emphasizes healthcare remains and the priority is for Houston's government. The president of Doctors Nova Scotia agrees that recruitment is a big issue facing the province. She says the tour is a good way for government to start its mandate. The Speak Up for Healthcare tour takes place September 20th to 23rd. The funeral for the Amherst family killed in a fire in Millvale last weekend has been set for Friday in downtown Amherst. The service will commemorate the lives of 4 children and 2 adults, and that'll take place at 1 p.m. at Victoria Square in downtown Amherst. R.J. Sears and Michelle Robertson and their children, Madison, 11, Robert, 8, Jackson, 4, and Colin, 3, were found dead in the camper trailer on Sunday. The family has gone there. They went there for the weekend to celebrate the 3-year-old's youngest child's birthday. On Friday, the Office of the Fire Marshal said it had concluded its investigation was recorded as a accidental fire. Nova Scotia is reporting 55 new cases of COVID-19 and 88 recoveries since last update on Friday. 34 of the cases are in the Central Zone, 24 close contacts to previous reported cases, 3 are related to travel, 7 under investigation. 13 cases in the Northern Zone, 11 are close contacts to previously reported cases, 2 are under investigation. 5 cases in the Western Zone, 2 are related to travel, 2 are close contacts to previously reported cases, 1 under investigation. There are 3 cases in the Eastern Zone, all related to travel. As of today, Nova Scotia has 129 active cases of COVID-19. Of those, 8 people are in hospital. When the province walked back the plan to implement Phase 5 of their reopening plan this week, it meant mandatory masking in Nova Scotia schools wouldn't end on September 20th after all. The decision comes after an influx of COVID-19 cases in the days leading up to the beginning of Phase 5. With the community spread in both Northern Zone and Eastern Zone and Central Zone, Phase 4 will remain in place until October 4th, when the province's proof of vaccination program is slated to begin. Paul Walsney, president of the Nova Scotia Teachers Union, believes remaining in Phase 4 is the right choice for the time being, particularly for the 2/3 of the students who remain unvaccinated of COVID-19. There is just 2 weeks to go in the 2000 Major League Baseball regular season. There's a thrilling National League West race ramping through between baseball's 2 great teams, the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers. The wildcard race has crowded in both leagues with 3 American League East teams, the Boston Red Sox, the New York Yankees, and the Toronto Blue Jays front and center. And then there are the players looking to put the finishing touches on their awards, the MVP, the Cy Young Award, and Rookie of the Year. The Toronto Blue Jays are in Tampa Bay tonight, the New York Yankees hosting Texas tonight, and the Boston Red Sox are off tonight. Weather-wise, we got clear skies in the forecast for tonight. We got some fog patches developing overnight with lows of 8 degrees. Tomorrow's going to be a sunny day. Those fog patches are going to dissipate early in the morning. Highs will get up to 21 degrees. Clear skies in the forecast for tomorrow night with fog patches overnight with a low going down to 11 degrees. Wednesday, a sunny day, a high of 21. Thursday, a mix of sun and clouds with a high of 23. Friday, a mix of sun and clouds, high of 23. And the long-range forecast for Saturday and Sunday, a mix of sun and clouds on Saturday with a high of 22. And on Sunday, cloudy with 60% chance of showers, a high of 20 degrees. That's your CIOE news update. I'm Ron James.
And welcome back, folks, to Federal Election Decision 2021 here at 97.5 CIOE FM radio in the heart of Sackville, Nova Scotia. Back with me now is Donalda McIsaac and Jeff Boyd. Welcome back, folks. Nice to have you. We had a very lively discussion a few minutes ago, and I hope to continue that with you. I'm sure we will, no question in my mind. We're seeing some numbers coming in now. We got Sydney, Victoria here in front of us, 45 polls, 50 polls of 205, and the Conservative lead keeps going up there. It was 300, now it's 500. That's Eddie Orrell. I think Eddie gave it a shot the last time, I believe.
Yes,
And,
yeah, this is a rematch.
yeah. What do you think of that, Jeff?
You know, this is one of those ridings where they were fairly close last time. I don't know how much Eddie Orrell lost by, but I think it might have been maybe 3 percentage points. And now it's switched 5 the other way. So, you know, we wouldn't call this a blue wave, but, you know, if those last, because we saw the polls, the Liberals had up to maybe 37 or 8. Maybe the Conservatives peaked out at about 36, and then they sunk in at about that 31 mark. So where's those 5 or 7% of the vote moving?
Yeah.
Which way are they going to break?
That's right.
And there's a few ridings, and I think in Nova Scotia more than maybe other ridings, where they obviously, they're used to pushing the button for the blue, and I think a few more of the rural counties have been willing to do that here this time around.
Yes.
So that's what we're seeing in Nova Scotia.
Yes. And did you have some, were you looking at New Brunswick during the break there, Jeff?
Yeah, I am. And right now, there has been, I was going to say zero change in New Brunswick because the 3 ridings that the Conservatives held last time are the same 3 ridings they hold, and quite securely. And a lot of the Liberal ridings are very strong. Now, one to watch for, a couple to watch for, but would be the Jenica Atwood riding. Now, she's the former and only Green Party candidate, I think east of BC. And of course, she switched parties and walked across to the Liberal Party after a confrontation with the leader.
Yeah.
And also about some jokes with regards to Israel, or statements, I should say. And last time, this was a close kind of 3-way race. And Andrea Johnson's the Conservative candidate, and she ran last time. So I was expecting that she would have a bit of a punch in here. There's only 2 polls reporting, but Jenica Atwin is 20 points ahead of Andrea Johnson. Now, again, the early numbers, 2 polls, but that's going to be one to watch. And the other one to watch, of course, would be St. John Rothsay. That could be close. And yeah, so not as much movement in New Brunswick as we've seen, say, in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting for sure. Even there, I mean, it's an indication, like in Newfoundland, if 1 or 2 move, and then in Nova Scotia, 2 or 3 move, and then if in New Brunswick, a couple move, and PEI, I think there's one there that's going to shift. If that keeps happening right across the country, there could be.
I don't think PEI is in play. I think they're going to go all red this time.
Oh, yeah?
I don't see a path for
Okay,
PEI.
okay, good. The only reason why I say that is because, again, I was over there the 2 weeks ago, and there seemed to be fairly, although I noticed also it was the Conservatives and the Green Party that seemed, in that one particular riding, that there seemed to be a lot of Green Party signs there.
There's an outside chance the Greens could take it. It's an outside chance. But provincially, they have a very popular leader, the dentist, and that's translating to the federal scene.
I think so.
Eventually, I'll say this much, maybe not this election, but eventually they were going to elect an MP, the Greens.
Yes, yep. I wonder, let's talk just a little bit about, speculate, I guess. It's what will happen to the leaders? What will happen to the leaders after this election?
See you later.
Can you elaborate? Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, Justin Trudeau, if he doesn't, I don't think he's going to last, one way or the other. He may squeak out a minority, but I think the party is going to, the knives will come out. And there's a lot of people within the Liberal Party who didn't want this election. And I believe that Christine Freeland is going to be the next leader. I really believe. I think she'd be dynamite, and she'd be the first legitimate. Now, Kim Campbell, that was a blip. But you mean, as a leader, I think she would make a wonderful prime minister someday.
Interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, she doesn't have the baggage, I think, that Trudeau's carrying with him after 6 years.
Well,
Yes.
you know, let's
She certainly doesn't have to justify herself being a feminist, I don't think.
let's be honest. I mean, we talk about Trudeau, and we talk about his father. Now, I was fortunate in my journalistic career. I interviewed Pierre-Elliott Trudeau on 3 separate occasions, and I'll tell you this: I was warned going in, and I found him to be a complete gentleman, and I was prepared. You don't interview Pierre Trudeau and you're not prepared. Yeah, I was prepared, and I have found him to be a complete gentleman. He was cut from a different cloth than his son. His son is more like his mother. I'll be bluntly honest. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, and Pierre was more of an intellect. He brought in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, was, a major feather in his cap for a lot of people across the country to do that at a time when we really needed something.
And he cost me my job.
Well, that's unfortunate.
No, it's a strange thing to say. In 1979, when Joe Clark made the mistake of, anyway, they called a federal election, and Pierre Trudeau came back to win that one. But anyway, I was the managing editor of the Sussex Record, and I got a call on a Sunday night from the press secretary for the Prime Minister in Atlantic Canada, Ernie Patterson. And Ernie said to me, "How would you like to interview the Prime Minister tomorrow, or the leader?" And I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." He said, "Well, can you be at the Admiral Beatty Hotel in St. John, blah, blah, blah. He's speaking there." So I met him in the kitchen. And we went off to one corner, and I interviewed him for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes. and I had a photographer there, and she took a picture of it. And anyway, so then I drive back to Sussex, and the owner of the paper was Mitchell Franklin. And Mitchell Franklin was a real buddy of John Diefenbaker. And in fact, he was an honorary pallbearer at Diefenbaker's funeral. So I walked into the office, and he was sitting in my chair. And he said, where have you been? I said, I was in St. John. He said, what were you doing? I said, I was interviewing the leader of the Liberal Party. Yes, and he said, what are you going to do with it? I said, it's going to be on the front page. When's the last time we talked to the leader of the Liberal Party in the Sussex paper? He looked at me and he said, not in my paper. This is a conservative paper.
Wow.
And I said, well, no. I said, it's a newspaper. And we said, and he said, well, that's it. He said, I'm just telling you, it's not going to be my paper. So that's fine. That was Tuesday, and Monday. Tuesday, I put the paper together, and I put the story in the front page. Because I was a journalist.
What day was that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, so
And
Wednesday you were gone.
Wednesday, he called me in, and he said, I think you'd make a good manager of my hotel in Halifax. And I said, I don't know, take a soap from a pillow, but I might try it, because I wasn't giving in, I had a contract. And so,
Oh, yeah.
so anyway, and I said, and by the way, I said, I'll need the vehicle. I had a vehicle. I said, I'll need the vehicle to go. And he said, can you be out of the apartment? I had an apartment he provided by 5 o'clock. And this was noon. And that cost me, Pierre Trudeau cost me my job.
There you go. Isn't that something? Denelda, let's move along and talk about Anna May Paul. She has had a rough go of it internally in her party. Is she there after this election?
I don't think so. I actually watched the interview done by Rosemary Barton with her. I think one of the problems here is that you have a leader who has no problem saying that she really doesn't want to stay on as a leader after the election. And I think that really hurts the party, because if your leader's not really confident in the party, it makes it very hard for the people to get themselves behind it. I think that whole situation is a little unique. Usually, you'll have your previous leader step down or step away.
Yeah.
But that's not the case here.
No, I think that she's a fine person and is doing a commendable job, but I don't see her staying. Jeff, you got any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's difficult. Those internal kind of politics haunted her through the campaign. I think one of the impacts that she actually had on the contest was that I thought she handled herself very well during the debates.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And very powerful moment when she named Jody Wilson-Raybould and Jane Philpott in the debate. And that was just, you could feel the shivers going down Trudeau's back when she was making these strong statements about being the only female candidate up there and making statements towards Trudeau. And I'll take the opportunity right now to insert a little thought, because one of the most uncertain voters, the undecided voters, is the female vote around the 905 region. So I'll debate this with Al if he wants, but how that vote swings in the 905 in Ontario does the relentless kind of attacking on Trudeau for his record with women, we'll call it, and thinking about Freeland as well, like as a next leader, would have credibility on that issue. I just would like, that she made an impact on the campaign. I thought she was, it just was one of those things. How she stumbled
I totally agree with you. He had an opportunity there to just take it on the chin and say, I made a mistake, and it was a difficult thing to do, but it's a party thing. Yep. But instead, he demeaned her by saying, I'm not taking any lessons from you. I'm sorry.
And that I don't think Trudeau won any female votes with that interchange.
Yeah, I don't either.
Rick Perkins has a 1,000-vote lead right now in so short of St. Margaret's.
Yeah.
See you later, Bernadette.
Yeah, I think he's going to take that.
You called that one out.
Yeah.
85 polls out of 270.
No, she's getting her just reward.
Yeah. Rick's a good man. He'll do a good job.
It's now 2-0
Toronto,
Gurriel, 2-0 for the Expo, or the Blue Jays.
Blue Jays, right
Yeah,
on.
They just hit another home run, Gurriel.
Yes,
Yeah.
good, right on. Appreciate that.
One of the things that just happened on the screen here is that there were 3 ridings in play for the NDP, and all of them turned red.
Oh, yeah?
So right now, there's no NDP ridings in play.
In Nova Scotia?
In all of Atlantic Canada.
In all of Atlantic Canada? Wow. Yeah, I really thought, I don't know what's happening in Halifax. Yeah, Chris D'Entremont's way ahead. I suspect you could probably call that
Oh,
one
yeah,
down.
that's,
It's 2,500 ahead.
he really benefited from that dispute.
Yeah, and so did Rick Perkins.
Yep.
And I don't know if there's another seat down that way that may benefit as well. But that's interesting that the NDP are not doing better than that. I thought they would. I thought there would be a couple of seats that would
Yep.
be.
Yeah.
Well, again, if you're the Conservative Party, well, if you're a Liberal Party, I should say, your biggest fear is the NDP nibbles away at your left flank and the Conservatives nibble away at the right.
Yeah.
And the NDP aren't, not in Atlantic Canada, not breaking through that well to take too many votes away from the Liberals at this point, I think.
Well, I thought too, he really wasn't clear. A lot of promises, but not clear on how to arrive at those promises, not clear where all the money was going to come from with all of this. And I mean, really, when you looked at it, he really was the candidate with the least amount to lose. So he sort of had more of a fun type of a campaign in there, or, you know, pointing fingers. But I think there comes a point in time that frustrates me is it's constantly pointing the finger at the other person for all the flaws instead of actually stepping up and saying what you would actually do.
It's okay to point out the flaws, but you gotta have an answer. You gotta be able to say, you know, this is what I'm gonna do to make it better.
The
It's
same way
not
as
enough.
housing. Everybody's jumping on the affordable housing bandwagon, and I keep on saying, stop using that word affordable, because of what do you mean by affordable? You throw that out there, but why don't you say low income or social housing? Why don't you call it by the name that it really should be called? Because affordable housing to somebody who can pay $2,500 a month, that may be affordable to them, but that's not certainly affordable to
I just
somebody else.
want to
So-
throw something out, because my wife and I had this debate at home, and she won the debate because of who she is. But this kid, Daniel Osborne in Cumberland, he was 18 years old. And when he was 16, he posted a question, something, was there really an ostrich? Now, I said to her, I said, give the guy the benefit of the doubt. He was probably asking a question because he didn't know about it. For some reason, he wasn't taught about it in school. He should have been. And, but she said, no, he should have known, and it's his fault. He has to step down. I'm really bothered by that. I think he made an innocent mistake at age 16. And why in the hell are we holding him up for? Why did we make him resign?
Yep.
I mean, it stands to reason that he might not know about the Holocaust and about Auschwitz. I mean, that's.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know if I can buy that one, Al. If he was living under a rock, maybe, but it's pretty hard not to know about that. That's.
Well, understand where he's living. He's living in northern Nova Scotia. He's not.
I know. There's some remote communities where he may not, but the internet and
I think
if he's a candidate in a federal election, he's got to make himself aware of these kinds of issues.
You said about turning rocks. They've been turning rocks for the last 2, 3, 4 weeks, and hopefully they'll stop tomorrow.
Unless I can
You
say
can
no,
convince me of a lot of things, but you're not going to convince me on that one.
Well, no, I'm not trying to convince you. I'm just asking a question. I just felt that they acted in haste. I think there was a chance to educate the young man, a very good chance.
Yeah.
At the same time, let him. He was offering as a candidate. He's 18 years old. He asked a stupid question when he was 16, and all of a sudden he's disqualified.
Because I
That
think it's part of the
doesn't make
cancel-
sense to me.
It's part of the cancel culture.
Yeah. I guess I can, did he, Yeah, it's a tough one, no question about it. There's, people make mistakes and they atone for them. And, you know, I, more than anybody, I think, believe in second chances for anyone that made a mistake in their life. It's the right thing to do. But,
We also have the Stephen Carter situation, you know, in Central Nova, where he made these comments.
yep,
And he was asked to step down, but he's still there. So it's, for me, it's all these different standards. You know, O'Toole asked one of his female candidates in Ontario to actually leave for almost the exact same thing as Carter, which he hasn't addressed. So we have this double standard. And again, it doesn't matter all these things. It still takes away from dealing with the issues. The further we do these, the more arm's length we can stay from dealing with the issues that really impact people.
Yeah.
And this is what this election should have been about.
yeah, I agree.
It should have been about, especially with COVID.
Yeah, that's for sure. Jeff, I think there's been a few, in Nova Scotia, a few seats that have been declared. I don't know if my, friend in my ear can just run those through me again.
Lenore Zahn's gone.
Yeah, I think Lenore is,
Looks like she's gone.
I think, what's the other one? Rick Perkins is, they declared Chris D'Entremont, I'm sure. Cody Blois has been declared. Daryl Sampson's declared. Darren Fishin in Dartmouth. And Cumberland Colchester, Stephen Ellis, he did win that seat, and that was that Lenore? Lenore Zahn's seat?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so there you go. Yes, that doesn't surprise me. Lena Diab has been declared a winner too. Yeah, yep. So, anything in Halifax, I wonder, that's probably still tight between the NDP and the Liberals there, I would suspect.
Well, in Andy Fillmore's riding, there's only 25% of the polls reporting.
Oh, yeah,
So we're
okay.
still a fairly small number, but he's got a 45 to 32 lead here over Lisa Roberts right now. So
45, 32, yeah, that's
I think he's gonna be
that's starting,
comfortable.
the gap's starting to grow there.
it's looking a little wide.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true with the Dartmouth Coal Harbor, because Darren Fisher is out at 49 versus Kevin Payne's 37.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a pretty big margin
Yeah.
to make up.
yeah. And Sean Fraser, I think, too, has just been declared elected. So what's that give us total? 3 or 4 Liberals, or 3 or 4 Conservatives, 3 Conservatives, and?
Well, right now, I'd say that 3 are all but declared, if they're not declared, and that would be Chris D'Entremont, the South Shore and Cumberland Colchester. Sydney Victoria, I would say, is still in play, because that's still, that's Eddie Roll.
Yeah,
Still
yeah,
pretty
that one
close.
was like 300 votes, I think. So that's-
I predicted four conservative seats, so we're at 3 and counting.
You did.
You're
Yes,
back in
you
1,000
yes,
so
I
far.
did.
At the start, that's
I'll
right, you
take it.
did.
I was gonna take it.
It is now 3-2 for Tampa Bay.
What?
3-run homer.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm sorry,
What inning, do you know?
my priorities are, you know where they are.
What inning is it?
5th,
Okay, lots of time, lots of time.
last time, yeah.
All right, folks, well, we're getting down there. There's about 4 minutes left. Any closing thoughts? Just, Al, do you want to start us off with some closing thoughts, maybe?
No, I mean, it's pretty well going the way I thought it would. I'm a little bit surprised with the weakness, I guess, for want of a better term, of the NDP. I thought they would pick a seat or 2 in Atlantic Canada, but looks to me like they're being shut out, which doesn't augur well, because although we're done voting here and they're in Ontario and out west, they find out that what's happening, and it can change people's minds in a hurry. Why they I hate the term waste my vote, but they will vote and say, I'm not going to waste my vote, so I'll vote another way.
Yeah. And there is, I mean, the time difference, where the
Yeah.
polls are closed here, but they're not closed out west.
Oh, God, no, not for hours yet.
And so, you know, there is that opportunity with the internet today. I mean,
Yeah.
people, you can talk to your friends,
Oh,
right?
God, you let them
I'm
know
sure.
what's going on. They know what's going on.
Yes, Jeff, anything?
Well, I think it's just one of those issues where if I would have said before this election started that the Conservatives needed to win 10 seats in Atlantic Canada if they had a shot at a minority government. They won 8. So the Liberals, my question to everyone, I guess, is just to say, what happens if the Liberals win a slimmer minority than what they went in with? And what are going to be the repercussions for the leaders? Again, might be one of those positions where,
That's gonna put the knives out for
Trudeau.
For young Trudeau.
Yeah.
and whether or not O'Toole is able to hold on. There were rumors that Pierre Parizeau was even, getting his shoes shined, ready for the next stomp.
Yep.
But that's going to be, that might be what we're dealing with, regardless of, people will probably think after all this, what was the point?
What was the point?
Yep.
Especially when we had a minority government that, for all intents and purposes, was working,
Seemed like it was.
right?
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
right.
frustrating part.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, to lose more seats, call an election, lose more seats. I know that he thought that and his, people around him thought that they were going to get a majority out of this. And for him not to get that is going to be really hard for a lot of the party people to swallow and a lot of Canadians to swallow, let's face it.
I was hoping we hadn't called the provincial one, he didn't call until the provincial one was over, because I think calling it actually had a great effect upon the provincial one.
I will give you the rallying cry, the Conservative rallying cry tomorrow. We told you it was a waste of money.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be for sure. Yeah. Well, look, we only have a few seconds left here. I want to thank you all for being here tonight, Jeff and Donalda and Al. It's been a pleasure.
being here.
And Michelle and Craig, thank you very much. Thank you, Jim Robson, the chairman of the CIOE, for putting this on. It's just fantastic to be able to be here and to have this discussion. Thank you to our technical director, Russell Gross, and to our technician, Andrew Crawford, and to Ron James, our newsman. It's been a wonderful evening, folks. Thank you so much for listening, and please listen in again. Thank you.